A warm welcome to all of you. My name is Christiane Püker. I'm the director of the German-American Center in Stuttgart, a cultural and educational institution focusing on the United States and the transatlantic relationship. Tonight's event is part of an 8-part digital event series called EUREKA, Valley Meets California, organized by the DAC Stuttgart on Baden-Württemberg State Partnership with California. The partner institutes, the DAIs in Freiburg, Heidelberg and Tübingen also contribute to the series with events. A big and really warm thank you to my colleagues. I would also like to thank the state of Baden-Württemberg for the support of the series. Today, with Silicon Valley Meets Neckar Valley, we will take a closer look at the similarities and differences between the startup culture in Baden-Württemberg and California. We will ask 2 startup co-founders what they consider critical for the success of the business, about challenges they face and how these challenges may differ in regards to the location. Furthermore, we will also look at opportunities and ways to learn from one another and share best practices, maybe even worse practices. The speakers of tonight, Suma, Reddy and Andreas Brehm, will be introduced later on by our moderator, Sera Babakus. Thank you all immensely for joining us for the talk today. Sera Babakus works as a consultant for immigrant and refugees entrepreneurs at the Institute of Technology Transfer at the local University of Applied Sciences in Saarbrücken, Germany. Sera moved to Germany in 2012, where she worked with various German-American centers across Southwest Germany and advised international newcomers in Stuttgart's flagship Welcome Center. Before I now hand over to Sera, please let me add that already during the talk, you can use the Q&A or Frage und Antwort button to type in questions, and we will try to get to as many questions as possible after the talk. This button you can see on your screen at the bottom edge. If you feel more comfortable asking the question in German, you can do so and we will translate them. Please note that the chat function will be disabled throughout this event and you will not be able to turn on your mic or your camera. Well, and now, Sera, Suma, Andreas, thanks again and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Christiane, for the very warm introduction. Thank you also to our 2 startups, Suma and Andreas, with whom I will have the delight of getting to know a little bit better tonight. My name is Sera Babakus. I'll be your moderator for the evening, and I'm really excited to be at this event for 2 reasons, actually. One, Christiane already mentioned. I'm actually working in this field, in the field of entrepreneurship. So I'm really excited and interested to know about these 2 startups. A second reason, though, is a very personal reason, because when I moved to Germany in 2012, the German-American institutes and centers in Baden-Württemberg were actually the first place that I got support, both personally and professionally. That was the DAI in Tübingen, and hopefully some of you are there today, although I can't see your faces. And then also the DAZ Direct in Stuttgart. So I'm very grateful that they asked me to moderate this event, and I'm happy to be digitally back in Stuttgart, so to speak. Tonight we have 2 great startups here, and I'm sure you're all looking forward to getting to know them, just as I am. How will we do this evening? How is this going to work? We have about another, let's say 45 minutes where I will speak with the 2 startups, ask them some hopefully very interesting questions and get some hopefully very interesting answers. Around maybe a little bit before 8 o'clock, we'll finish up our talk and then we will open up a question and answer session to you as the audience. Christiane already mentioned that you can put your questions in the F&A or the question and answer box using the symbol in your Zoom window to ask any questions you have throughout the entire event. Around a little bit before 8 o'clock, we'll then open up the questions and see if our startups can have a chance to answer them. What do I hope to get out of this discussion tonight? It's not about trying to teach you all how to be entrepreneurs, although I'm sure that there are going to be some good tips throughout the evening. Rather, we really want to focus on maybe some similarities and some differences in the experiences of these two startups at what we assume to be very different locations, but who knows, we'll see if there are a lot more similarities, and to see what can we learn from each other and how can this cross-cultural, this transatlantic connection really benefit from this talk tonight. I'll be asking questions in what I would say 5 different categories. And I'm going to count them off in the American way using my pointer finger first. Germans would do it this way. I'm going to use this way. But at first, we're going to talk about some basic information so that we get to know the startups. What are they doing? What industries are they in? The second area that we'll go into is just sort of a personal and professional connection to the US and to Germany. And of course, to the locations where you both are at. The third category we'll look into is the personal motivation and the why. Why are we doing it? What's our philosophy for being entrepreneurs? The fourth thing is to really look at the infrastructure at the different locations. What helps, what hurts startups. And the last thing is what I call, our fifth category is what I call a lightning round. And I also see Andreas, I already see Andreas' face thinking, oh boy, what is this lightning round? So eine Blitzrunde is what we would say in German, maybe. Exactly. Suma, we'll see if you have your paper. Fantastic. Yes, thank you. A lightning round where I will ask some short, sweet, and hopefully ridiculous questions and get some short, sweet, ridiculous answers from both of our startups, which I hope will reveal some really honest and authentic topics that maybe we missed throughout the rest of the conversation. So I hope that I've covered everything as of my introduction so that we can move on without further ado to the people we're all here to meet. I'd like to welcome officially Suma Reddy, a graduate of the Wharton School and CEO of Future Acres in Santa Monica, California. Hi, Suma. And Andreas Brehm, co-founder of Nexability, next generation mobility solutions for parking, retail, and real estate in Stuttgart, Germany. Schönen guten Abend, Andreas.
Guten Abend.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for both of you for being here. So I'd like to get some really basic information about what both of your startups do, just so that we're all on the same page. My first question goes to you, Suma. Future Acres is a startup in what is called the ag tech industry, which is a very interesting abbreviation. What exactly does Future Acres offer, and how does it fit into this ag tech industry?
Thanks, Sera. I'm really excited to be here. I feel like I'm going to learn a lot just by being part of this panel. So Future Acres is part of the agricultural technology industry. It's by 2025, it's a $85 billion industry. What we do is we're an agricultural robotics company, and the first product that we're making is called Carry. It's what we call an autonomous harvest companion. So it transports crops to increase the production efficiency on farms, as well as farm worker safety. Mm-hmm.
It's autonomous, which means that technology is involved to help humans do their jobs in some way more efficiently.
Exactly. We use computer vision, machine learning. So, if any of you have a Roomba, for example, in your home that vacuums your home, essentially that, but something that is on a farm and that can carry crops. And the future potential of this is really quite exciting for us when we think about the future of agriculture and how we need to make it sustainable financially, environmentally, for people as well.
Mm-hmm. What are maybe the first agricultural fields that you guys are starting up in, and how do you intend to scale that into what different fields of agriculture? I think of agriculture as, I don't know, as an American, maybe corn. What products are you, what types of agricultural products are you starting with, and where should that move in the future?
Yeah, a fantastic question. And I'm glad you mentioned corn or even grains. One thing is autonomy, mechanization has been around farming for a long time when we think of, the tractor or the combine machine, but it's always focused on these like large scale corn, right, or grain crops. And that is because those aren't very delicate crops. You can thrash them, right? And nothing happens. But with specialty crops, which are things like table grapes and strawberries, they're really delicate. Americans especially, they're really picky about how things look in our grocery store. And so you can't have bruised vegetables, things like that. So you haven't seen mechanization or robotics in these spaces. So we are starting with creating a ground robot. So this is a robot that can autonomously travel throughout the farm. And what we're targeting is a very sort of expensive portion of the process, which is hauling fruit back and forth across the farm. It's brutal to a farm worker's body, but it's also inefficient when you think about a farm's bottom line. And so we're starting with crop transport, but once you can travel around the farm, the possibilities are endless, right? You can use those sensors to do soil sensing. You can use sensors to understand the crop weight. You eventually go to picking. So it's really, ultimately about increasing plant health, yield, and quality, and increasing kind of the farm operational efficiency and how farm workers move around the farm.
I assume with this idea, there's a lot of I'm just going to, as a layman, as someone that doesn't know anything or isn't an expert in this field, that there's a lot of data that has to be collected. There's a lot, it's digitalization, it's automation. And then at that point, I move over to Andreas, where a lot of these, let's say like mega trend words also play a role, I think, in your business idea. Andreas, let's move over to you. Tell us a little bit about Nextability and what you do and where the idea even came from.
Yeah, in the core, it is very similar to what Suma said. We are in a business, parking management. I worked in parking management since 2015. There comes the idea from, but I guess we come to that later. And I saw that in Germany it is very inefficient to manage parking spaces. We're a country of a lot of cars. There's a car for every grown-up German, like 40 million, and there is not much space. There's a lot of limits where to park your cars. So there's a need to manage this limited space. And through digitalization, new technology, collecting data, managing data, we can optimize this, and by a lot. Germany is very, very behind in that. The US is a lot more technological. I learned most of what we do now from an American back in 2015.
It wasn't Elon Musk, was it?
No, it wasn't. But
he's not an American, though, officially.
He's a Canadian, but he's from the Bay Area. He lives there. Yeah.
I'm sure. A lot of Californians hate that comment that I just made. But
Really?
So you took a lot of influences. And what you're doing is essentially you're making something more efficient for. You're making it efficient for private people, but you're also making it efficient for your business customers. So you're doing business to business, essentially. Yeah,
business to business, but we serve our business customer to serve their customers. So it's B2C in a way, and to make it better for everybody. That's our goal.
Now I'm going to go into the direction of an obligatory question that I'm going to ask at the beginning, and then we're going to leave this topic until the rest of the conversation is over. Corona. I'm sure last year was difficult for both of you. For many startups and businesses, 2020 was also kind of a disaster year. But Andreas, as I learned with you, startups that innovate, they also innovate in a crisis. How has your product portfolio changed since 2020?
Yeah, okay, I just say our customers are static retail businesses. Some customer goes to a store and buys some things, and he usually moves with a car. And they stayed open. Luckily for us, they stayed open. And the few customers we had at that time, we were very small at the beginning of the crisis. And at that time, most of our not yet customers, they just came to us and asked, hey, you're the guys with the sensors and the data and the technology. We have a problem because in Germany, I guess in the US, it's the same. The amount of people in the store was limited, and it is limited right now as well, I guess. Yeah, it is limited in most of Germany. And they just came to us and said, hey, we have no solution for that, no good solution. Do you have some technological thing, sensor or a plate or whatever to solve that? And then within 2 weeks, we just said, okay, we did making it completely on our own. We had a good partner in Stuttgart. We found it within 2 days and set a contract, a deal with them, and brought a solution to market within 2 weeks. They had no customers. We had the customers and the idea what the product should look like. We finalized it and brought it to market within 2 weeks. We sold a lot of like 300 or 400 right now systems in stores.
And this system for the retail market, just so that we have a picture in our head, it's I would call it like a traffic light system for the entryways.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah, in a way it is correct. It must be, and in the crisis, and most of the stores they want to have the problem solved, but they just don't want to lose a lot of money with it, because nobody knew back in a year how long this goes.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of cheap solutions that don't work, and there is a solution that we do with a real good 3D optical sensor and a real big it's a big sign with a big LED and some signal on top, so that the people just they stop in front of it if it tells them to do, and this is what they wanted. And it solved the problem because it's 90.999% it counts the people really good.
Okay, fantastic. That means also that they don't have to have a security guard standing at the entrance with a clicker saying 200 people are there minus 5 people that just left. That saves them time, that saves them money, that saves them energy.
Yeah. And they know, and we have an app with it, an app, and the store they see how many people are inside, and they can just push a button and the signal turns red, so nobody gets in. It's a real sleek system.
It seems very intuitive.
Yeah, it is.
Suma, how about you? I heard in the past couple of months that Future Acres, there's been a lot of excitement. Would you give us a peek into what's been happening at the beginning of the year?
Yeah. So for the biggest thing for us was the official launch of the company. We've been kind of working in the background on the product, on the partnerships. And so we officially launched the company with a crowdfunding campaign on Seed Invest. So we're raising $3 million on Seed Invest. For those who aren't aware of equity crowdfunding, as it's called it's a new way for startups to raise money beyond, say, angel groups or venture capital groups. It's for people like you and me, right? Everyday people who want to invest. In this case, we have $1,000 US minimum investment using this platform. So it's going really well. A lot of people told me, like, wagons aren't sexy, ag isn't sexy, no one's going to invest in this, but we have far exceeded expectations in these first few weeks. So it's been awesome.
Fantastic. So it looks like this year has been pretty good for both of you. It seems like I will cross my fingers, or I will push my thumbs, as the Germans say, that this year turns out the best for both of you. Let's move on to maybe to some personal and professional connections to Germany and to California, to these different locations, because as real estate agents say, location, location, location. There's got to be something to the reason why you guys are where you are. Andreas, we talked on the phone before the event just to get to know each other a little bit, and you seem like you're a big US fan. You actually already mentioned your influences, that you've gotten lots of information and inspiration from the US, but you also did a tour of the US a while back. You did even a trip up and down the Mississippi River, I think, not on the river maybe, but you did the path of the Mississippi, which is interesting to me as a native Memphian, because no one goes that way. What drew you to the US? Why were you so interested to visit the US?
I guess I'm an early millennial. So what I grew up with are American TV shows, movies, music, comics. Everything is was American, and in fact is right now as well. In Germany especially, the American influence, the US influence is very big, and I always, as a kid, I dreamed to it's a big wide country, and there are endless possibilities, and yeah, it just kind of drew me to my adulthood to visit. And in 2015 I had enough money, working like 5 years in a row, to visit the US for the first time, and I did that 3 years in a row. East Coast, West Coast, middle.
Did it meet your expectations, your trip? Did it,
it did.
Confirm your expectations completely?
I just
feel free to be honest. I won't be insulted.
Every country, every society has its flaws, but I love the openness. It is more heartwarming to be in the US. I had so many chats with people I barely knew. The most interesting conversations I had on parking lots with people. They just saw my car with a Georgian plate, and being in Jacksonville, Florida, they'd, oh, you have a car here, and it's like a three-hour conversation about life and everything, and you just don't get that in Germany. It's so, they're so open. Americans in general are very open, very positive, very chatty, and I like that. And the country is so diverse, so open. There are deserts, there are mountains, there are beaches, everything. And Germany is very small compared to that, and I find it fascinating.
Suma, have you ever been to Germany?
I have not, but actually the very first startup that I founded was in anaerobic digestion, organic waste to energy. And so a lot of the kind of premier companies developing that technology in Germany itself, in terms of the policies that you've implemented, like, right, always in terms of renewables, right? Germany is fantastic compared to the US, especially. So that was my first interaction sort of with German innovators and technologies. But no, I have not been to Germany. I would love to go to Germany. I don't eat beef or pork, so hopefully I can just eat sauerkraut and you tell me what else. I'm kidding. I know you have a fantastic culinary scene, and there's more than that. But yeah, I'd love to go.
But it's fascinating to hear that you that when you connect Germany and business, you also think very much of sustainability.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think it's really inspiring. I've spent a big part of my career in climate tech. And so I remember, this was back in 2009 when I really dove into it, and looking at the policies that Germany had. It was just so much more progressive and friendly to the commercialization of these policies, meaning, correct me if I'm wrong here, but, will actually help meet the UN goals around sustainability, right, and climate in a way that, many other countries have not done. And hopefully with us, right, with a change in, anyway, I won't talk politics, but you know what I'm saying.
we can get to politics, or at least let's say a diet version of politics. We will definitely get to that. Suma, your company is located and grounded in Santa Monica, California, which is a hop, skip, and a jump from what the Google Maps says is the official Silicon Valley. What are the perks then of having a business in that region of the country?
Yeah. I think I'll answer that maybe in a couple ways. One, California, right? That is sort of the proverbial breadbasket of much of our agriculture. And so for us, table grapes, 99% of table grapes in the US are harvested in California. So from just a customer standpoint, you have that. I think the second thing, as we know, Silicon Valley as being the first hub of kind of tech and entrepreneurial innovations, 1990s .coms, and before that, you found a lot of talent coming into California, obviously first in SF, But then LA, really, LA, Santa Monica, right, benefited a lot from that. So LA is another tech hub, right? And so then you saw these in New York, you saw these in Austin, you saw these in other places. But that geographical proximity means whether it's customers, investors, or talent as we're building our teams has been really incredible.
I'm sure a lot of people are wondering if you're sitting in California right now. So from what I've heard, your company is based in Santa Monica, and most of your team is also sitting there in Santa Monica, but you yourself are not there. Where are you right now?
I am in, actually, I live in New York, New Jersey, but I'm in Pennsylvania right now. This is the first beautiful day, so I'm sitting outside.
Is that a typical setup that that startups, is that out of your experience a typical setup that maybe a CEO or parts of a startup are in different geographical locations?
So that's a great question. For me, it hasn't been that way. I was actually that person that was like, the team must all be in one place, right? So it's very old school thinking, perhaps in that way. And then of course, COVID hit. And I was like, this isn't going to work, especially for hardware companies. And I'm so happy that I was proven wrong, right? Because just the amount of flexibility, the ability to come see family and work outside, right? Things like that. That for any entrepreneur, right, we dream of this kind of freedom eventually. So it really has worked. I think the biggest challenge, right, is when you're building hardware, your teams need to be on site to build physical products, right? So I lose a little bit of that, and I have to, in a post-vaccinated world, right, be flying to California, of course, to meet all our partners and customers. Mm-hmm. But I'm excited. I hope this sticks, not only for our startups, but in general, just this kind of flexibility.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Andreas? Can you imagine being separated, or are you separated geographically from your? You are, okay.
Yeah, we by default are separated. We are three founders, one in Saarbrücken, where you are.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, but he moved since to some south of Stuttgart, and I'm in Nuremberg, actually. Yeah.
Okay, so but your company operates though out of Stuttgart, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it is. It is. We have like every 2 weeks we have physical meetings if possible, and I think the same as Suma said, it is good to see you in person sometime, but it is not necessary. And we are a half of a hardware startup. So we have hardware where you put together some things, but most is management and software. So I think it stays that way. We will have an office in Stuttgart, I guess next month, but yeah, we haven't needed it yet.
So what's the importance of the location of your two startups? I mean, let's think about it maybe like this. Silicon Valley has like a cloud of reputation around it, as does maybe in the case of Germany, Berlin. I mean, I've been here for a while. Berlin, maybe Munich, maybe Hamburg as places that you start up. In the case of Stuttgart, is Stuttgart a place where people think of startups?
It's a very difficult topic because in Germany, to found a business is not the common way of getting a career or building a career. That's what I experienced, and most of my colleagues and friends are always like more the corporate way. I think it doesn't matter. It depends what you do. But I guess it doesn't matter. And Stuttgart is a very, it's the capital of Baden-Württemberg. Daimler is here. Porsche is here. There are a lot of universities, good universities, big universities, a lot of good, talented people, a lot of know-how, a lot of tradition, and a lot of money as well. I guess, would it be better to move to Berlin? No, it wouldn't change much.
I think also the two regions have very different, I mean, reputation sounds like a very negative word, but they have different yeah, there's a different feel and there's different things that these regions are known for. Berlin, I think of as a very creative, a very young international place in general, although it's changing in different directions, I'm sure, at this point. And I think of Stuttgart and Baden-Württemberg as a place where you've got hidden champions, you've got small and medium enterprises, what you probably don't even hear about abroad. I don't know, if Suma, if you know a lot about Baden-Württemberg, other than maybe Daimler and maybe the bigger names about the rest of the business landscape. What about you, Suma? Silicon Valley, you've already sort of explained why it's useful to be there. You mentioned some personal reasons why it's good to be flexible. Are there any maybe pitfalls or the downsides to being physically with a startup in Silicon Valley? Are there any things where you thought at some point, no?
That's actually, so it's a good question. So I've spent some time right in SF, San Francisco, which most people live, right, not right in Silicon Valley. We would live in SF, New York, and then, you know, outside of LA, Santa Monica. I would say in terms of Silicon Valley and SF, this is a pro and a con. One is that you historically you would go there and you'd walk into a coffee shop and every conversation would be like, what app are you developing? What app, you know, who's your team? Oh my God, did you score an investor? Right. And these were the conversations. I think in LA, there's the creative economy, which is very rich, which means you can also develop different types of startups, right? Because you tap into what's in the area. Same with New York, right? FinTech, became really huge there, and also creative economy, right? A lot's in New York. And so sometimes, right, bubbles can be a little bit, they don't always foster innovation, right? And so while I love Silicon Valley and SF for setting the groundwork for essentially the rest of at least these cities in the US to be inspired by and then grow out of. But I'm quite excited to see the growth of cities like Austin, for example, the Midwest, Chicago, you know, places like that, developing real tech hubs.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Let's move maybe on to the topic of why you guys do what you do, which we've already touched on in a couple of the questions. And Andreas, already at the beginning, you wanted to sort of talk about the reactions. Well, you've mentioned that it's not the typical way. Yeah, starting up a business is just not the typical way, whether it's in Baden-Württemberg or maybe in Germany in general. Did you always want to start your own business?
In a way, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess in Germany, that's really in Germany. There you get taught from very little to go have an education, a good education, then have a job, some corporate job, be safe, work till retirement, maybe in the same company. That's the way it was in Germany, and that I guess it stayed the same. And for me, it never was excited to have to get an education for some specific job. I mean, I had to choose what I want to become within the age of 13, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Where you need this branch to more economics or technical or more art. And I always thought, no, that's not the way I want to be it, because that's a life completely planned till retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a German way. You get an education and you work in that field you got educated. That's not an American way, I guess. I hope Suma will tell a little bit more about that. And for me, it's just the excitement to build something new, to do something. Just you just think of something and build it and see it grow. And on the way, you learn so much and experience so many things you just don't do in a corporate career normally. And for me, but we're not very many. I don't know very many people that do that in Germany. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
How did your friends and your family react when you decided to take that leap, considering that history?
Yeah, so whatever. Yeah, go ahead, do it. My grandparents, of course, they said, "Oh my God, just learn something good, get a good job, get well paid, don't take risks, like every grandparents do.
Okay.
My mother, knowing me, said, "Go do whatever you want. You figure it out." But I guess in the US, it's more excitement. You get around and help each other. In Germany, most of my friends, they okay, you quit your job and do something for your own. Oh, good for you.
What, Suma, what has it been in your experience? What is then the American way, now that you've heard how the German way could be?
Yeah. So I think for me, and this is a really interesting question, just processing this. I think, right, I can't help but be colored, right, by my Indian American background. So I grew up also sort of with this belief that just put your head down, right, be invisible, get a good job. My parents were doctors, during that 1970s immigration policy that fostered that immigration. And so for me, the examples were around me, like kind of just get a stable job like that. And so when I decided my first gig was in the Peace Corps and living in West Africa for 2 years in a village. My family and the greater family, right? I'm a big Indian family, right? We're actually kind of disappointed. And we're like, we don't understand this. We don't know why you would do this. And every decision I made, except Wharton, they were all very proud that I went to Wharton. They were like, yes, like status, go for you, good for you. It was always like, why are you doing this, right? Because it was kind of like, oh, now you went to Wharton, why don't you just go work at Google? Like, because entrepreneurship is not a lucrative career. And at all, it is a huge challenge, right? But to me, it's a calling, right? I don't think I really have any other choice other than doing what I am doing and continuing to do this for the rest of my life. So yeah, yes, America, like innovation, culture, right? All of the risks, but just from a personal standpoint, definitely face some challenges. Now that I'm older, I think everyone in the family is like, Suma's going to do whatever she wants to do, and it's fine.
Right. That's good.
Do you have, as Andreas mentioned, do you have like a close friend circle of entrepreneurs, and you support each other and bounce ideas off of each other? Okay, so it's
absolutely. This actually took a long time to build. I would say I've been in terms of founding my own companies, doing that for 10 years. So joining every single support network, Women Who Hardware is one I started, Lesbians Who Tech, founding something called Entrepreneurship Who Activism, right? So for me, I always join support. They're essentially support groups. That's how I see them. Unabashedly love to find other entrepreneurs who can support, network during this journey. Yeah. I think they're all my friends now. But by the way, I think all my best friends are entrepreneurs now.
Suma, you just said something in more or less words that you wrote in your bio for the invitation to this event, that you see entrepreneurship as activism. At least I've read that several times online, and that was also in your bio. Can you say a couple of words about that?
Yeah. So I think for myself, when I came out sort of as a lesbian, I jumped into sort of the activism scene, and I got really inspired sort of by what activism could do in terms of pushing social justice movements and advancing, approaching like systemic issues. And when I looked at entrepreneurship, right, we have these amazing examples: Elon Musk, right, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg. They tend to look like one part of our population, and they're solving specific types of problems. And so, I just thought, like, we're at a time, I think, a turning point, right, in our history, and especially in the US, where we need to figure out, right, how do we center justice? How do we start to solve systemic issues and use the power of innovation, of entrepreneurship to kind of attack, solutions for people, planet, right, and profit. And so, that motivates me in my own life.
Andreas, we also spoke, and the way that you described maybe I wouldn't call it a philosophy, but I would call it maybe your conviction what entrepreneurship should do. And you mentioned entrepreneurship as disruption. As disruption. Correct me if I'm wrong, or add to that.
I can't remember saying that so specifically, but okay. Entrepreneurship is going forward, thinking other ways, innovate, and this is like a little bit like activism in another way, to change things for the better through technology or whatever other organization doing things differently. You can get all those in under the umbrella entrepreneurship. Somebody's got to do something. And it comes from, like Suma said, from Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. They formed basically the society we live in. A huge part of that comes from a few people taking big risks financially for their life, whatever, and making the world better for many, many people. And whatever you do, do it with passion, and then it gets better for everybody.
Fantastic.
But you need those people. Governments won't change nothing.
Well, since you say that, Andreas, let's move on to the part 4 of our discussion tonight. It doesn't have to be about government or necessarily directly about politics, but a question to you both. And I'm going to use a very official statistic so that we're all on the neutral side of things. Every year there's a global entrepreneurship monitor that's brought out, and the 2019 monitor did a ranking of high income countries in the world in terms of their entrepreneurial activity. Germany in this monitor ranked 28th of 33 total countries. The US ranked number 5 of 33 total countries. Above the US is, I think, the United Arab Emirates, a Scandinavian country, and I think maybe Estonia. From your experience of startups, why do you think there is this difference in the entrepreneurial activity? So this ranking tells us, just in case that the numbers were too fast right now, that the US ranks very well, very positively, and Germany ranks not as positively on this list. Why do you think that?
Yeah, I would love to address that. And I think government helps it in the US. I think, right, to me, I think about the triangle, right, which is we as entrepreneurs, our job is to commercialize things, right? The biggest innovations and inventions though start at R&D at the academic level, and government funds those. And so for me, I cannot exist doing the work I do in agricultural technology if I didn't have decades of academics and R&D scientists funded by the USDA government, or all the National Science Foundation, whoever you name it, funding all of these activities. SpaceX, the amount of government funding he has is astounding, right? So while I'm a big fan of entrepreneurial innovation, right, our job is to make money. Like, end of day, our job is to make money. We're not putting in the blood, sweat, and tears of the 30, 40, 50, 100 years of innovation that happens. It's just not quite commercial. Yeah.
So what you're really pointing out is maybe something that's special about the US educational system, something that's special about the university setting that of course is linked to the government. But I think that the educational system also plays an interesting role, because Andreas, you said before, in school you learn certain things. Suma, you have you've got a background which allowed you through R&D, through universities, to sort of get a foot in the door, I guess, but also the funding that even gets projects going is based in universities. What has been your experience, Andreas, with maybe whether university education or what in Germany is Ausbildung? I'm not sure which one you did. How did your education officially help prepare you to be an entrepreneur?
It certainly helps. I'm a university degree in a way, and I was in HFT Stuttgart. Maybe you know it. Not the real university Stuttgart. It's
a technical university.
Yeah, technical university, and it certainly helps. And in that's what differs from the US. Education to a diploma is free in Germany. Mostly there are private universities you can go, but you can get a very good education at free universities, and the Ausbildung for a certain job. There's in Germany, it is very important to have a Ausbildung. You can't be an electrician without 3 or 4 years of education, formal education, and it is all free, and it helps. In Germany, everything is very professional. In the US, I experienced it is more do whatever you like. If you get sued, then yeah, you figure it out on your way. And in Germany, it is more. It is all more. The system is very, very clear what you do and what you need to do, what you can't do, and yeah, that's it.
What maybe what support did you wish you had, either public support or private support, when you started up your business? Did you have programs or institutions that helped you, Andreas, when you were starting up, or did you just essentially bootstrap it, tried it out, it worked?
We bootstrapped it. It was a personal choice because there are programs in Germany, not so many, and in Stuttgart, a few less than maybe in Munich or Berlin. But we bootstrapped this company because we just could. It took a lot of effort in Germany to get funding. We tried just on the side. We tried it, but it led to nowhere, and so we just skipped it and funded with our own money. It was the easier way.
Suma, I know that, I mean, if we think about Silicon Valley, you don't think just of technical startups or tech startups, you also think of huge venture capital organizations or companies. Do you think that this venture capital, or that the private financing sector plays a bigger role than the public financing sector?
I think it depends on the industry. I think VC or venture capital in the US, right, it's moved up market. Right? So what we raise in terms of the seed round, which is your first like $10 million often, sometimes 5, that's a lot of that funding, right, is coming in from different channels: angels, friends and family, government, accelerators, programs like that, micro VCs, and then VCs come in oftentimes at a little bit late seed and then Series A. So in the US anyway, what we've seen as entrepreneurs, it's harder to tap into what 15 years ago was VC capital, right? Like before you go to Kleiner Perkins, you're like, I have an idea. And they're like, wow, you're a genius. Now it's like, what are your metrics? What are your run rate? Who's your team? How many customers? Show you pipeline. So it's matured as an industry. It's made it a little bit more difficult, but I think, you know, the flip side of that, it's positive, right? You know, we want to see, right? We want to be tested, right? Before just being given tons of money and making sure the right companies are being funded. So I don't know if I answered the question. I'm sorry if I didn't, but
no, you absolutely did. You absolutely did. I think, I mean, as a person that hasn't on her own started up a business in Silicon Valley, I assume that everyone's just ready to go. I'm ready to invest, and I'm ready to, I mean, maybe that's also, I mean, I've been influenced also by movies, by television, and also by maybe an outdated understanding of the way that Silicon Valley also works now, or the way that the private, let's say, capitalizing sector now functions. So that's really interesting to get an update on what's actually happening right now. Andreas, what do you think would need to change in it? Let's know a different question. So you've started up this country essentially out of your out of employment. Yeah, you started your company out of employment. And Suma, I think you're a repeat offender essentially. You've been starting up companies for a pretty long time. Where do you both see yourselves going for the rest of this year? And either one of you. Surprise question. Yeah.
Suma, go ahead.
Yeah, I love this question. So with Future Acres, I mean, I think the first big milestone that we'll hit is raising minimum of $3 million through equity crowdfunding. I think secondarily, we'll hopefully now get a good partnership that allows us to sales partnership so that we're not just selling one unit, right? Like 2,000 units, something like that. And the third thing from a product development side, you know, really piloting our product on farms by the time harvest season hits closer to the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Andreas, what about you?
First thing is to get profitable within this year. Mm-hmm. And I think we can make it to quadruple growth this year, and I hope we achieve that.
All right.
And maybe last step, if we have the time, we are now just in Germany, and maybe if luck hits us very well, we grow beyond borders to Austria, Switzerland, and yeah.
And the world. To infinity and beyond. We'll see. Okay.
Yes, next year.
Very exciting. Thank you both so much. Those were some of the official questions that I had wanted to ask you both. I would love to do a lightning round if you both still have a little bit of energy left. So please bring out your paper and pens. Thank you so much. I'm going to keep it to 5 questions because I do see that we have a couple of questions from the audience. So the idea of this lightning round is I'm going to ask you a question and you should, in a short amount of time, write a very short answer. I will tell you when you have to stop writing and then you hold up your answer. If you have to draw a picture to answer it because that's easier, go for it. If you have to use an abbreviation because that's easier, go for it. If you have to write it in German because that's easier, that's fine. Or whatever language that you'd like to write, that's fine. We'll figure it out. Okay, so the first question, and this is a scale question on a scale of 1 to 10. Yeah, all I need is a number here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how far are you from making it, from being a complete success in whatever definition that means to you? 1 means you are very far away. 1 is very bad. 10 means we are there. We are the masters of the universe. How far are you from making it, being a success? Scale of 1 to 10, go. You have 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Very good. Okay, a 7 and a 5. If you'd like to add anything to your answers, feel free to add them. Otherwise, I will not badger you unless I feel like badgering you. A 7 of 10 and a 5 of 10, that seems really promising from both of you. Okay, the second question. We talk a lot about successful startups, but of course now there's a trend to talking about startups and how much they've screwed up, because making mistakes is also a big part of starting up a business. I need a number from both of you telling me how many serious screw-ups have you had in your career as an entrepreneur or startup? The number of times you seriously just made a huge mistake. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, 3 and 4. Okay, I'm just interested if there is an example that one of you might, if there's a situation or something that either of you could tell us about a certain screw-up situation.
Andreas? This company is my 3rd one, if I haven't mentioned yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. 3rd time's the charm, Andreas.
Yeah, of course.
Knock on wood, we all say. Okay.
That's the 7.
Okay. So now I'm going to a question where all I need is you to fill in the blank. That means I'm going to tell you the beginning of the sentence. You finish the sentence. Okay? The key to success as a startup is blank. It can be more than one word, that's fine. 5, 4,
Oh.
3,
Uh,
2, 2.5, or 1.5. 1.
Yes, success.
Suma, why did that come to your mind so quickly? The answer is persistence.
It takes years and years and years and years to build a thing. That's why we call it a baby. And so just you're gonna face so many challenges. And so just being persistent, super key. Yeah.
Okay.
Same, just same.
Just keep going, just keep swimming. So question 4 of 5. To gain inspiration for our startup, this is also a fill in the blank sentence. To gain inspiration for our startup, I want to visit blank. Yeah. To gain inspiration for my startup, I want to visit blank. Blank could be a place, like a country, like a city. It could also be like the lobby of a company that you admire. 5, 4, 3, 2.5.
Oh God.
2, 1.5. 1. Aha, there we go. Okay, Suma, you would like to visit some more farms. Andreas, Brehm, you'd like to visit Elon Musk's office. I also
hope he's there.
Okay, then let's do the last question then in this Blitzrunde, in this lightning round. So this is an either or question. Are people either born entrepreneurs, that means they're born with the capacity to be a startup or to start up a business, or are they made entrepreneurs? Yeah, born or made, meaning they learned it. Born or made. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Aha, okay, very interesting. Okay, I'd love to hear both of your opinions on that last question, even if you're not 100% sure, because it's a tricky one. Andreas, would you like to start? Because it seemed like you were pretty sure about your answer.
No. I guess it's a little bit in the middle, but you have to be wired a certain way to do it, to take the risk. And you can make it, but you need to have a basic, and that is born, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. You have to be built a certain way. I think I put made, right? Because a lot of the entrepreneurs, right, in the US, you come from a little money, right? That's how you get started, or there's a certain amount of privilege that you have, whether it's education or networks, and that's how you kind of keep going. So I said made, right? Because I like to think of sort of the opportunities that we need to create for people to, like, as Andreas said, tap into what is their nature. I'm going to plug in if you guys can travel with me.
That sounds good. While you're doing that, Suma, thank you both so much for playing my ridiculous game. I think that was a lot of fun. I hope it was fun for you too. Yeah. While you're plugging in your laptop, Suma, I'm going to turn over to the question and answer box that has been blinking a little bit throughout the evening, and check out what the audience is interested in knowing about you guys. So I have a first question, and this one goes to you, Andreas. For maybe an organization that wants to write something about you more specifically, could you name a few examples for business partners from Stuttgart that you work with?
The name?
And if not, I can tell you. It's for the online TV channel stuggi.tv in Stuttgart. If you don't want to say it right now, maybe take...
A big partner from us. We have a lot of things coming up. It's Netvico. They sit in Stuttgart South, I guess. Yeah, just Google it, whoever asks. And with Mr. Zweigle at the Stuttgart Vasen, Cannstatter Vasen. It's a big area. He owns that area, and we have a lot of things coming up with him. Yeah, that's the main two I'd like to name.
And just one more time, I think that because it's relevant in this case, otherwise I won't, I will not mention the names, but I think in this case it is relevant for you, Andreas, the TV channel stuggi.tv, in case you do want to call there and just be in touch to get more details out there. Okay, Suma, it looks like you're back in action.
Yes, thank you for that. Sorry.
No worries. No worries. So, Suma, you said that bubbles like Silicon Valley can hinder development. Do you think this also includes or applies to social development like inclusion and diversity? And what's the situation like in Silicon Valley, in your opinion?
Yeah, this is a dense question. Yeah, I do think it definitely has adversely affected the tech industry, which was born in Silicon Valley. We see in venture capital sort of the numbers of who gets funded, and that is because of networks, right? It's a lot easier for people to just tap into the networks they have, whether it's Ivy League graduates or other white men, right? Or for me, other women, right? That might be who I'm attracted to. So I think it has been detrimental, right, to the growth of the industry. What that means, though, is that we aren't solving all the problems that we could solve. We will see we are already seeing so many more interesting companies solving problems for every single subsection of society, right? Whether it's women's health, right? Or community or creator communities that focus on, right, LGBTQ, things like that. So I think there's the diversity, equity, inclusion piece, but in terms of societal impact, right, and in terms of the companies we create, I think this is the turning point right now, at least in the US, that is happening.
I think just to follow up on that question with one of my own, I think people sometimes misunderstand social entrepreneurship as entrepreneurship that isn't profitable. Are you seeing there an indication that, profit-driven companies are different from profitable companies? If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that. So to me, also, when I use, or the people in my world use the term social entrepreneurship, we mean for-profit entrepreneurship. So we think about what was first originally called the triple bottom line, right? Sort of social, environmental, and economic sort of impact. It's now morphed. You see things like ESG goals, environmental, social, governance goals that PE firms, right, are articulating. And so like how things are funded is really looking at it from all sides of the impact angle, impact funders, PEs, family offices, foundations, right, who want to pour money into more and more of these innovations. I think the next stage of this, in my perspective, right, is centering around justice, right? I think how we look at systemic problems and solving systemic problems as a society, and how profit plays into that. Maybe you're not going to have $1 billion company. Maybe you'll have a $100 million company. Nothing to sneeze at, right? And so for me, profit does play a part in how we grow these things. Though I love nonprofits as well. So I don't want to, kind of poo-poo nonprofits, because I think they play a super valuable role, right? I'm launching one right now, so really valuable role in what we do.
Just launching another business or organization in your free time, so on the side.
Yeah.
Andreas, I noticed that you were nodding your head a little bit at this question that I just asked. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
No,
the social entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it like she said, it's always money based. You need to have some kind of funding, or you need to follow the money. Unless it doesn't work. This is how it works.
You have to have money to do good things.
Yeah, money isn't bad.
Yep. Do good things with money and talk about it.
Yeah.
The next question is to you both, actually. Just a very basic question that I didn't even think about. How many people do you both employ?
Should I start?
Yeah, sure.
Excluding me, 4.
How about you, Suma? Excluding you 4, Andreas?
Yeah, excluding me 4.
Excluding me 7.
Very okay. 7 and 4. How are those all full-time people, or are those all maybe part-time, freelancing? Those are actual employees.
For us, it's actual employees. We have a lot more, but they are all in like outsourced. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For
What
the
about
basic things.
Suma, is your team of 7, are those full-time employed staff members?
Sorry, we're a mix. We actually come out of a new type of kind of formation that's happening. I don't know. I'm curious if it's happening in Germany. What's called venture studios or startup studios. And so what it means is that an engineer for my team will also work on another project. So they're sharing a lot of learnings. So if they're building code that's related to computer vision and machine learning, right, we can also use that code as well, right? And of course, you gotta iterate it quite a bit, but we're out of something called Wavemaker Labs, and so that's how for us, we really get to accelerate and tap a lot of amazing talent through the shared resources model.
So it's like team sharing.
Yeah, team sharing, name it, whether it's engineers or brand or marketing, right? Yeah, you can share all of that.
Yes.
Another question, what was the biggest challenge you've both had so far, and how did you manage to overcome this challenge? Big question.
Is this at Future Acres or life or?
With your startup, I think is the best way to start.
Yeah, for me, it's very, very easy. Just leave my job and going in full time.
Okay, taking the leap to do that.
Yeah, the leap, that was the most difficult for me.
When was the moment, Andreas, where you were convinced you should do it? Was there a moment, or did you just close your eyes and hope for the best?
No, there were a lot of moments. Don't need to get into detail with my old company and how the market is going, what I like to do. And then there was a moment where I need to leave now. I don't want to. I'm very afraid to do it, but I have to leave. Yeah.
A moment of incredible courage.
Yeah, it's like, maybe you read the book Tipping Point. Maybe you know it. And it's like a lot of things come together in a certain way. So I said, okay, I'm not that afraid anymore. I can jump and go.
Suma, what about you?
I completely relate to that. Not necessarily with Future Acres, but that is such a mental and emotional, for me anyway, such an toll. There's a lot that goes in that process. For Future Acres, I would say it was really honing in on what problem we wanted to solve. Like when we looked really expansively at agricultural technology, right? And we looked at all of these steps from like seeding to pruning to post-harvest to distribution, right? We looked at table grapes, at strawberries, especially, at raspberries, right? And when you think of that large world and thinking about, how do you hone in on this? What is the first target market that you want to get into, right? And really approach and have confidence that it's actually a foundation to that exponential growth that you eventually want. So it's a really fun challenge to have, I would say, but it is a challenge, right? It's gaining confidence in your business.
Yeah, so it's about confidence in your business, but confidence also in yourself as an entrepreneur to overcome the challenge or to make decisions, I think, also for a big part. Andreas, I have a question for you from the audience. Would you say that Stuttgart needs wider international connections in order to become a true Neckar Valley? So in terms of being like Silicon Valley?
I haven't looked it up how much connection there is. There is a connection right now, I guess, but more doesn't hurt, I guess. Stuttgart has the potential to be like Munich, that big city that everybody knows for Oktoberfest and whatever. And Stuttgart is always the second place, but I guess there is the potential.
Stuttgart also has the Cannstatter Vasen, as you already mentioned.
Yeah.
So a smaller, but also a very wonderful version of an Oktoberfest. So there's potential, as you say. Suma, what has you've already talked about this a little bit, but maybe you'd like to expand. From the audience, the question: what was your experience as a queer woman of color in Silicon Valley? Because neither women nor people of color nor members of the LGBTQ community are well represented in the tech industry. Yeah,
it's a good question. I think for me, right, I was very lucky. I don't think I faced blatant discrimination. A lot of what goes on right now is kind of unconscious bias, right? And so for me, it was more like tackling that, right? In terms of developing my networks, it was really easy for me to develop networks among other queer people, whether gay men or lesbians or the rainbow, right? Or other women, or and I work with all white men, honestly. So, and especially in ag. I think that's something that I'm hoping that these divides, right, start to that we start to bridge the divides more and more. There's a lot of imposter syndrome as well. I think when I first started off as an entrepreneur and I was looking for examples, like I said, I can't see myself in Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. Like I tried. It was the same when I was coming out as a lesbian. I actually was so repressed because I literally knew no brown South Asian gay people. So I was like, I can't be gay, right? I grew up in America, right? So I think we become who we can see. And so for me, right, I think it led to a lot of imposter syndrome, right? And that's my own stuff, right, that I needed to work through. And so it's nice to see that's changing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that personal answer, Suma.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to test my German out here. Stimmt das, dass es in Deutschland Scheitern von Staat? Okay. Is it true that in the US, is it true that in the US, when a company fails, when a startup fails or an entrepreneur fails, that is that reason enough for a bank or an investor to say, sorry, we're not going to support you? In Germany, for example, if you fail, sometimes it puts a mark on the potential to get support in the future. Not always, but you're shaking your hand, Andreas. What does that look like in the US? Is that a KO, a knockout criteria?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually historically kind of quite the opposite, right? Failures can be seen as a badge of honor, right? In the sense that you are honing a craft, right? You're not good at basketball the first time you step on a court, right? And so there are entrepreneurs who literally start at age 6, right? There's amazing ones, like Bill Gates probably did that, right? So Elon Musk, 12, right? But for most of us were honing a craft. So I think failure is really embraced. It does depend on what segment of society you are, and how much, and who you are really is how much they embrace you. But I would say culturally, talking about your failures, being open about your failures within the entrepreneurial context is okay.
Mm-hmm. A question maybe to you, Andreas. A very personal question from somebody. I think it's very good. This person is relatively successful on the corporate path in Stuttgart, wants to know which criteria he or she should consider to evaluate whether or not to quit and become an entrepreneur. What advice maybe do you have there? Without a guarantee, but
yeah. To know when to quit? Do you feel safe to quit? Then just jump, I guess. And there is no just right moment to quit. I was afraid to quit. Yeah, as a German, it is it is very frightening to quit your job, to leave it. But there, I did it. Being 10 years working, and I never changed my lifestyle, so I had a lot of money in the background, and that helped a lot to just jump.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think you have it, you know there is a way you can live on your own. Just do it. There's a lot of literature that helps and says basically the same that I did.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody helps you. You need to jump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did it help you at all, Andreas, to think about maybe your vision of what your startup or what your business will be in the future? Did that give you any additional motivation?
You should have a plan. That's I hope that comes through. You need a plan. You can't just jump and say, yeah, I figure it out on the way, what to do, how to make money. You should have a plan. And I did.
Okay. Very good. I'm sure that there are, although I don't know exactly which ones there are institutions, organizations, I'm sure in Stuttgart and in Baden-Württemberg that help you do this type of planning to just check for yourself, is this something that has promise? But at the end, as you said, Andreas, you just got to jump. And
spoiler alert, it's just the basics. How you do, how maybe I want to have Hartz IV in German, the government funding, if everything goes south. But you have a plan for what am I gonna do to make money.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. The main question: how am I going to make money? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If there is one thing you could ask for regarding your business, what would that be? Mm-hmm. The question's on both of you. To both of you. If I think Santa Claus or Elon Musk came and said you can have anything tomorrow, what would it be?
So we're going to officially make our campaign live next month in the next couple of weeks, which means people can actually invest rather than just reserve. So I guess the wish list, hardware automation is really expensive. We're building physical products. So if by miracle, we could complete the campaign in a month and raise $3 million in a month, that would be my wish.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Andreas?
Maybe some want to be customers become customers.
Mm-hmm.
We have a long cycle, and COVID didn't help to have to get the normal cycle from here we are. That is our solution to. Here's your contract, go ahead, do it. That's a lot longer right now, and I hope a lot of big customers decide for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very good. Okay, we're down to the last two questions, I think, for tonight. One last one to you, Suma, individually. Do you think that Silicon Valley will always remain this startup oasis, or do you think that there are things that need to change so that it can maintain this position?
I mean, I think philosophically, everything that is created must die. But realistically, I think Silicon Valley will be the hub in the US for the foreseeable future. It's where it all started. It's where all the VCs are, where you still have a lot of engineering talent there. So I think, let's call it the next 50 years, right? I think we're still going to see it be the main hub, but we'll see a lot of mini hubs, like even New York compared to Silicon Valley is a mini hub. So I think we'll see that happening quite a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Andreas, over to you. What maybe local support could help you at the moment the most?
Local support. We're in search for a bigger office right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's the way. And we try to connect with our old universities and my old university to get maybe some young personnel within the IT sector. And customers, of course, we're looking for big parking houses right now in Stuttgart. We have a connection to the city of Stuttgart, and that's a lot. It's a slow pace with them. Hope that gets a little bit more. It takes a little bit more the pace.
Speed, yeah.
The speed, yeah, of course. Thank you. And yeah, that's all, I guess. Yeah. In Stuttgart, that would help a lot.
Okay. Young people, young qualified people,
Yeah.
maybe from the university context,
Yeah.
a bigger office, and maybe a little
Yeah.
bit faster.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask just that the audience, I'm going to have, at this point, really the last two questions, I promise. To refrain from asking any more questions because we're going to wrap it up so that we aren't all here all night, although it seems like this conversation is going very well. So thank you both so much for sticking with it. So the last two questions then. What do you wish you had known before launching your startup? And that will go to both of you, I think, because I think that's a really relevant question.
So I would, I'm going to have to take it back to launching my first startup, all right, because I think I've learned so much. I think what I wish I knew was how hard it is and how much we need other people, right, in those networks and that collaboration. I think I was bamboozled a bit by my first startup that I worked out, ended up becoming a high growth unicorn. I was a very, very early management team member there. So just wandered into that, right? And I was sold that myth, right, that we see on television, right, that you can do it in a year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, right? The reality is it's like these are 10-year cycles that we should probably think about. And that's if you get lucky. 99% of startups fail. So maybe just being a little bit more pragmatic. I was a bit of an American cowboy or cowgirl, I guess, in my mentality. And so maybe wish I had that little bit of German pragmatism, if I am allowed to say that.
Andreas, what about you?
I guess one is it doesn't matter when, you have to start someday, and you don't know it all. And I haven't thought of what Suma said. You just can't know everything, and you need to seek help with others, and you're not alone, and you need to let go a lot of things and give it to other people and trust them. And this is what, if I had learned that earlier, we would be somewhere else right now. Yeah.
All right. So the last question, as promised, we all, I'm sure, hope that at some point we'll be able to visit each other in person and not do everything via video conference, although it is naturally really pragmatic to do things like this, that we can be so flexible. But when we can see each other again, I assume, of course, that Suma is ready to invite us to visit her. Andreas, you're ready to invite Suma to visit. Yeah. What does Suma need to see in Baden-Württemberg? And what does Andreas need to see if he goes to California or to Silicon Valley?
You start. Or should I?
I'll start.
Okay.
So I can think of two things. One, it's beautiful, whether you're outside Silicon Valley or Santa Monica, right? So go hiking. It's really gorgeous. Weather year round is really fantastic. So Santa Monica Mountains, South Bay, all of that. The second thing, which is California specific in general, in LA as well. Very proud of our tacos, right? And that's coming from, of course, Mexican immigrants, but it's like New York and New Yorkers and their bagels. That is what tacos are to LA. So street tacos, taco trucks, and restaurants, super popular. And I can confidently say LA, people in LA, right, believe that they have the best tacos in the US.
Ah. I tried In-N-Out.
Yes, In-N-Out is fantastic. Did you get it animal style, the special sauce?
Oh, I don't know. It was free. It was 3 years ago, and it was at Sunset Boulevard, and there were so many people that just said, "Yeah, give me the biggest burger, fries, Coke, and I'm out."
Cool. So
it is better than Burger King and McDonald's in Germany.
yeah, it's a little fresher, that at least in the US side. So the pro tip for In-N-Out is they don't state animal style on the menu. So it's like it's kind of a known secret. When you get the burger, or even when you get the fries, you request an animal style. You can, even if you're a vegetarian, you can just get like the cheeseburger, no meat, animal style, and it's like a special sauce. It's really, I mean, it's so bad for you, but really delicious. So I'd recommend
Sometime
it.
it's okay.
Yeah, of course.
But of course, you've already gone hiking at that point, Andreas, so everything's fine. Calories have been burned. What about Baden-Württemberg? What tips would you have for Suma?
I wrote some things down, and of course, it's Cannstatter Vasen. If you're in Germany, you need to go see Oktoberfest and Cannstatter Vasen. It's the second biggest thing, and it's a cultural thing. If you want to see how Germans interact with each other, they do it over a big beer, and it's Cannstatter Vasen, and it's in September, I guess. I don't know. I've been there 3 years in a row, and
you can't remember though anymore.
It was my student times 10 years ago, but it's fun even if you don't drink alcohol.
I drink lots of alcohol. I love beer. I love whiskey. So I'm so down. I'm so down for it.
Yeah. So you're right at Cannstatter Vasen. Of course, you need to see every museum from Porsche and Daimler. It's a 100-year company. Wow. You need to see it. Maybe not Baden-Württemberg type, but go rent a big car and drive on a German Autobahn at night. This is what many Americans I talk to would like to do. Going the American speed limit for like 13 hours. It's a different experience in Germany.
Wow.
And just in Stuttgart and basically in Germany, in the south of Germany, just go visit the cities, and you have so much, there's so much culture, and everything's so old. The oldest building I saw in like Washington, D.C., they told me it's a 150-year-old building. That's the oldest building. It was like a cabin, a wood cabin. Most of Germans in the south live in buildings that are 120 years minimum.
Oh my gosh.
And just wander around, enjoy the nightlife. It's very different to the US. Been in the US, it's completely different. And for you, the business side is, you said you have a lot of grapes to harvest, and we have a lot of wine regions in the German south, especially in Stuttgart.
Nice.
Yeah.
That all sounds fantastic. Excited.
To drink and to process.
Yes.
To drink and process, of course.
Wonderful. Well, that brings us to the end of our discussion tonight. Thank you both so much for this really, I think, really fun and really lighthearted, but also very, very informative talk. I learned a lot. This is also a culture shock for me on both ends, learning more about Baden-Württemberg, learning more about the US, to parts of the US that I have not yet visited because I'm from the deep south of the United States. So thank you so much for giving me the information. I think we've really seen an immense amount of diversity in the way that people can start up and what entrepreneurship can mean in different locations. I think there were also a lot of stereotypes that maybe we sort of debunked. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about individual opinions also, so no guarantee that these are statistically significant results, but I think we saw some really interesting information. So thank you both. Our audience members, of course, might want to reach out to you to be in touch. How can they be in touch with both of you? Website? What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, I think for me, you can find me on LinkedIn, I think fairly easily, Suma Reddy. You can also, via the website, do that. But either way, I will be communicative.
Same. LinkedIn, Xing, in Germany, Xing, via the website, or contacting you. You have my contact information.
Yeah.
That's everything.
Okay. Thank you both so much. And thanks again from me for this really wonderful opportunity. I hope that you'll both be in touch with each other. And I'm sure that the DRZ in Stuttgart will be happy to be a liaison in connecting your different locations to make sure that things happen. In my experience, they're usually always willing to help, which brings me to you, Christiane, for a couple of closing words. Thank you both.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, Sera and Suma and Andreas. I mean, that was so much fun, actually, also to listen to you, inspiring, interesting. What else can I say? It was really awesome. So having you at least digitally with us tonight. And so I'm actually very much looking forward to maybe meet all of you again in person and together here, maybe in Stuttgart or even in California, going hiking. I like the idea. You can hike a lot here around also, you know, like, oh my, go hiking. So that's really, that's great. And yeah, I of course also would like to thank our listeners and questioners for their participation. Great questions also, I agree. And also want to thank our colleagues from the cooperating German-American centers in the state of Baden-Württemberg, and my colleague here at the DAZ, Max Hahnemann, for the technical support. Yay! So the next event in the EUREKA series will be organized by the German-American Institute in Freiburg. And here comes the mountains again. On the occasion of Earth Day, it will focus on national parks. Black Forest meets Yosemite Park, National Park. And please mark your calendars for April 22nd, 7 p.m. So, and if you want to learn more about us, all of you just check out our websites, meaning not just the German-American Center here in Stuttgart, but also of the other DAIs in Baden-Württemberg. And we here at the DAZ in Stuttgart will be posting our next program running from April to July next week. Yes. So finally, may I wish all of you a wonderful evening. Stay healthy. Have a good night. And so goodbye.